He's no longer under my wing, that he's a good person. I want him to be able to sit back one day and go, we worked together, we did a good job.
That's dedication. Find out more at fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
A weekend of terror. I'm Laura Cantor, Fox News. Mass shootings across the U.S. over the weekend, killing and injuring dozens of people. South Street, a busy entertainment district in Philadelphia, the scene of one late Saturday night. Of the 3 people killed, 2 are believed to have been innocent bystanders. At least 11 people were wounded in the shooting.
This harrowing incident claimed the lives of 3 individuals. At this time, we believe that one of the 3 decedents was a male involved in a physical altercation with another male that was potentially the genesis of the shooting.
Danielle Outlaw, Philadelphia Police Commissioner. Meanwhile, a mass shooting early Sunday morning near a bar in Chattanooga, Tennessee, leaving 2 people dead and at least 17 others injured. A 3rd person died after being hit by a vehicle while fleeing the shooting. Chattanooga Police Chief Celeste Murphy says the public must remain vigilant.
Just anonymous tips from the public letting us know there's something going on, and, because these things escalate so quickly.
No arrests made yet in either of the shootings. Mass shootings also occurring in Saginaw, Michigan, and at a strip mall in Phoenix, Arizona. Despite the Biden administration attempting to ease the baby formula shortage, the crisis still persists. Fox's Lucas Tomlinson has more from the White House.
The baby formula crisis continues, with 10 states now 90% out of formula. The Abbott formula factory that closed, leading to the shortage nationwide, has resumed production, with initial product hitting stores in the coming weeks. And another flight of humanitarian aid delivered by a U.S. military cargo plane flying in from Australia, expected to land soon, carrying formula made from goat's milk to feed millions of American babies.
After causing heavy flooding on Miami streets over the weekend, Tropical Storm Alex is moving towards Bermuda. America is listening to Fox News.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tuman location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
The suspect accused of killing a retired Wisconsin judge created a political hit list.
And the suspect in this case allegedly targeted that retired Wisconsin judge, and he reportedly also had his eyes set on possibly harming prominent Democratic and Republican leaders. According to multiple reports, 56-year-old suspect Douglas Uday had a hit list that allegedly included Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell and Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. This was apparently discovered after Wisconsin authorities say Uday shot and killed former Wisconsin Judge John Romer inside the judge's home before critically wounding himself in Juneau County on Friday, just northwest of Milwaukee.
Fox's Charles Watson in Atlanta. Another Chicago police officer has been shot, the 3rd in recent days.
Offenders are brazen in harming officers. We've been repeatedly saying for the last 2.5 years now, offenders have shot at and shot officers at a 500% increase.
David Brown, Chicago Superintendent of Police. The CEO of an animal rescue in North Carolina is accused of animal cruelty.
Police finding the bodies of 28 dogs and 2 cats inside the home of 47-year-old Caroline Dawn Pennington. She's the CEO of Growl, an animal rescue group in the city of Columbia. Investigating officers in Richland County found the decomposing animals inside cages after receiving a complaint about the smell of death. Richland County Sheriff says it's one of the worst cases of animal cruelty he's ever seen. The animals were reportedly left in the cages between 7 and 9 months. Pennington is charged with 30 counts of ill treatment of animals. Chris DeMeo, Fox News.
Tennis superstar Rafael Nadal winning his 14th French Open title Sunday. I'm Laura Cantor, and this is Fox News.
Are you looking for a new place to hang out with your friends? Let's go along the sidelines at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Located at 154 Iriarte Road, Unit 4 and 5 in Tamuning behind Royal Banks. Sidelines, a hidden gem with nothing but great things to offer. Great atmosphere, great food, top shelf drinks, and a great team. What are we waiting for? Let the fun begin at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Open daily from 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. See you there.
Kings Guam World Tennis Tour, presented by GTA, is bringing international tennis back to Guam. 4 weeks of international play will swing into action with 2 weeks of juniors, followed by 2 weeks of pros, May the 15th through June 12th. The Guam National Tennis Federation will host world-ranked players who will be coming to Guam from all over the world. Netters will compete for ranking points and cash to improve their position among the world's best. Matches will be played daily at the Guam National Tennis Center in Harmon, starting May 15th through June 12th. Special thanks to our platinum sponsors, Dimension Systems, New Gen, American Medical Center, and Morico Equipment.
We're already Pika's best radio station, but we're always looking for ways to be even better. Announcing the point on Alexa. In addition to our FM and HD radio feeds, our incredible app, informative website, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, you can now tell Alexa to stream The Point. And your smart speaker will start playing whatever we're saying. News and views 24/7 with your 4-word command. Alexa, stream The Point.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, shall not be infringed. Well, we got through another weekend, and here we are again, Jose. We got a whole week of tall tales ahead of us. Things are looking up. Things are looking really bright. So let's start out with Zemi Ikutni. Our view, Public Health Disparities Program, good move for Guam. When COVID-19, better known as the Wuhan virus pandemic, hit our community, it revealed more than just the vulnerabilities of our healthcare infrastructure, as if that weren't enough. It showed us just how underserved our underserved communities truly are. Oh, there's a mouthful. It showed us just how underserved our underserved communities really are. This is another one of these trigger words, underserved, look out.
I like how they define the word with the word.
Yeah. You know how you define the word underserved? People who are underserved fit into the definition of underserved. We've already understood the logistical difficulty of reaching our most vulnerable and homeless populations. The fight to beat the spread of the virus took the men and women serving on the front lines of the Department of Public Harassment and Secret Services out into pockets of our community where residents needed much more than Wuhan virus vaccination. Thanks to them and the warriors of Guam National Guard's Operation Homebound, a new initiative emerged. Today, Public Health Disparity Program is expanding and creating partnerships that will help keep this community initiative going for at least the next 2 years. With $6.6 million grant from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and partnerships with the Todu Guam Foundation, Catholic Social Services, Manielo, the Guam Housing and Urban Renewal Authority, the Guam Homeless Coalition, Guma San Jose, Liheng Sinafu, Touré Cafe and Linda's
And the kitchen sink.
and the kitchen sink. More than 1,660 shots were administered, according to Patrick Lucis, coordinator for the Health Disparities Program. Additionally, dozens of tests were completed in more than 2,200 government assistance referrals were given to help residents connect with services such as Medicaid and Section 8. Lucis also explained that one of the goals of the Health Disparities Program is to help train members of underserved populations to become certified healthcare workers. This goal alone makes this initiative worth every penny invested. When the grant is finished, we will have built a capacity of healthcare workers throughout the island. This grant gives us an opportunity to gain more, said Lucis. It's programs like this that highlight the strength of our community. It's nothing to do with the community. That was a typical Democrat response to any kind of a problem in the community. First, find a group that you can label as underserved. You know, find somebody where you can virtue signal and generate some sympathy. Then start a program, and then appoint someone to run the program, and then look for more money. That's exactly how it's done. But if it doesn't work, it doesn't matter, Jose, because the Democrats can then sit back and say, well, we really tried, so it's okay. The Daily News says it's programs like this that highlight the strengths of our community. It's not the community. It's once again an example of the only way to solve a problem is for the government to solve it. With biblical and historical references that remind us of how we treat the least among us, it's work like the Health Disparities Program that sets standards we all can follow. We applaud the partners who are working daily to keep this initiative going, and we urge island leaders to consider permanent funding for this program, permanent funding. Now, except for this paragraph that makes the biblical references, this would have made a pretty good story, a news article. It's not an editorial. It's not even close to being an editorial. How long has it been, since they started printing editorials, how long has it been since we've had a real one?
I think my hair was still all black.
Me too. That's a long time ago. All right, let's go to the card, see what we got on the card for today. Of course, we start out with Paul Zerzan versus systemic racism. And then we've got Tall Tales versus the governor. Solace versus the USA, a little bit more on cockfighting. The ACLU versus free speech. Rulemaking versus the legislature. The legislature versus its own standing rules. No! Carl versus the Guam Visitors Bureau. The Attorney General versus GTA. A racist versus Uvalde. Beto versus Robert, and France versus Russia. Okay, so I don't think I need to spend much time on Paul Zerzan and systemic racism. Just to remind you that the color of that rice in that platter, if you're following the initiative, is red. If you want the truth, it's orange. Next is Tall Tales versus the governor. And for that, I have the hard copy of Sunday's Guam Daily Post. And if you haven't seen the Sunday's Guam Daily Post, this is what it looks like. Here's the headline, and here's the story right below the fold. Klitzkie, uniquely Guam policies at risk if insular cases are overturned. Well, in an effort to have the United States Supreme Court overturn a series of decisions referred to as the Insular case is picking up steam, take a peek at my calendar again here, my card. You know, I'm reading the wrong article here. Yeah. This is a really good one, and it's so good I just couldn't wait. But let me get to the one I should be reading for this item on the card. Tall Tales versus the Governor. Okay, it's a letter. What I don't want to hear at the State of the Island address. Today's Sunday Forum asks, quote, what are some of the topics and issues you want the governor to discuss during her State of the Island address? And a Holmesian twist. Now, that's not Oliver Wendell Holmes, the Supreme Court Justice. This is Sherlock Holmes, the English literature figure, the great detective. And a Holmesian twist, parenthesis, it's what the dog didn't do. Now, you tailgaters out there know, if you read this article, you know exactly what I was talking about. So I'll list what I don't want to hear at the State of the Island address or at any other time from the governor. 1, America bashing, either personally or by means of stooges sent to UN venues. Now, the names of the stooges are Curly, Larry, wait a minute. Bavakwa, Wanpat, and Babota. Pretty easy to get confused. Curly, Larry, you know, I could just see the three of them. Beep! Yeah. America bashing either personally or by means of stooges sent to UN venues. 2, the reliance on identity politics as a rationale for public policy decisions. And I'll show you what I mean by that. I hope. I'm a little bit more disorganized than I should be, but here's a story that ran in the Post about the debates between Governor Leon Guerrero and Delegate Michael San Nicolas. And here's a quotes that I pull out of here. The candidates were asked questions on a variety of topics, including health, the economy, education, and federal issues. The governor and delegate shared different beliefs on who should be eligible to vote in a political status plebiscite. San Nicolas advocated for all to participate, while Leon Guerrero felt it should be exercised exclusively for native inhabitants. Identity politics, Chamorros only. Both were asked what they would say to residents who feel their stance is morally wrong. Now, that's a tough one for the governor to answer, morally wrong. She pretty well has displayed her morality with respect to killing helpless, innocent children in the womb.
Born and unborn.
Born and unborn, yeah. And here's how she answered the quote. Both were asked what they would say to residents who feel their stance is morally wrong. Quote, I don't think not including non-native inhabitants, and meaning not including non-Chamorros, is morally wrong. I think what it is more moral, and ethical, is that we're moving forward for social justice. We have not been able to determine our political status despite the fact that the United States has said that they would, despite the fact the United States is totally supportive of it. They would what? So here we are, social justice, identity politics. I don't want to hear any more of it. Governor Leon Guerrero, you're not the governor of Chamorros. You're the governor of every single person that lives on the island, even the ones that aren't United States citizens. So keep your identity politics to yourself. Third, the reliance on identity politics in dealings with questions of suffrage is exactly what I read. Fourth, the reliance on identity politics as a pedestal for bitching about historical grievances. You know what happened in 1898 and on and on and on. It's time to look forward and not continually. It's like a kid, a couple of kids playing when the Three Stooges and the governor get together, getting out their old toys that they've been playing with since they were small children and playing with them all over again.
Just a note.
Yeah.
The published version says a pedestal for complaining about historical grievances. You've been edited.
I've been edited. Yeah. Okay, so I thought I had copied this from, I copied it right out of the online. What are you?
I'm the published.
You're reading the hard copy.
The hard copy, yeah.
Oh, okay. I suppose the linguistic sensibilities are greater for the hard copy than for the online. Folks are a little bit more used to stuff like that, right? The governor can serve us all by being positive about our position in the American family and so stating in her speech and thereafter. And I don't want to hear any more of this identity politics. And most of the folks that express their views kind of feel the same way I do. It's time to move forward. Here's what I'm looking for the governor to say. First of all Americans should be made aware that the Americans living on Guam are the forward edge of their defense against the enemies of all Americans who live on the mainland. We're the front lines out here. We're defending you guys. Is the United States Virgin Islands defending the mainland? How about the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico?
Nope.
American Samoa?
Nope.
CNMI? Not so much. A little bit, not so much. So this thing about, well, we got to stick together with the other four powerless colonies. That way we'll be stronger. It just isn't a very good thought process. What we ought to do is highlight the fact that we're out here on the front lines and we're defending America. So, folks, if you're interested in your defense, you got to pay a little more attention to us. But we've never sung that song. We've done and once again, it's always bitching. Amazon won't ship electronics to Guam. Well, why are they discriminating against us? Or, I went back home last summer and people in Podunk, Iowa, didn't even know where Guam was. Well, what did you do? We've had a delegate in Washington since 1974, and none of them have taken it upon themselves to educate the folks over there where we are and what we're doing for all of them. And it's time we started. Second, to the extent that Americans living on Guam prosper, American defense is enhanced. The better for us, the better for you guys over there, San Lagu. 3, a healthy, vigorous, prosperous Guam benefits the nation as well as Guam. 4, ergo, a Veterans Administration hospital on Guam and the programs and benefits available in the 50 states would benefit the nation as well as us. So when it comes to SSI and all the rest of this stuff, treat us like you treat the other states. You don't have to, but if you know what's in your best interest over there, 50 states, you would. And I wind up my little piece here by saying Guam has a compelling American story to tell. The governor needs to be that storyteller. Yeah. more interested in social justice. Sorry about that, folks. Maybe we can get a new governor next year who will be more interested in telling the story and being the governor for all of us instead of being a social justice warrior. Okay, I'm going to go on to the article that I started to read. And it ran in Saturday's Post, and it ran on the front page. Klitzkie, uniquely Guam policies at risk if insular cases are overturned. While an effort to have the United States Supreme Court overturn a series of court decisions referred to as the insular cases is picking up steam, a former Guam senator, judge, and current talk show host is concerned advocates for the change are not considering negative outcomes resulting from the legal move. On Wednesday, Neil Weir, president and founder of Equal American, announced that 8 amici, or friend of the court briefs, have been filed calling on the court to consider a case known as Fitissimano versus United States to be the legal vehicle to overturn the case law. That case challenges a divided appeals court reversal of a prior judicial ruling that found people born in American Samoa have birthright citizenship. Current federal law recognizes the people of American Samoa as U.S. nationals, not citizens. Lawyers and politicians opposing the decision argue it could be used to deny and revoke citizenship of those in America's other unincorporated territories. You got that sound effect wrong? Wrong. There you go. It is rare these days to see people from different political or ideological backgrounds agreeing on anything. So we're encouraged to see both Republicans and Democrats, conservatives and liberals come together to support turning the page on the insular cases and the colonial framework. I'm going to turn the page here. They established, Weir said, treating unincorporated territories differently from states is permitted because the United States Constitution doesn't universally apply to Guam, CNMI, Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, and American Samoa, according to rulings that are part of the insular cases. This legal principle has been used since the cases were brought up in the early 1900s as a basis for limiting or denying the territory's participation in the federal government and the programs it creates, not the federal government. It can also mean that international treaties between allied countries and the United States don't automatically apply to Americans' insular areas. Sometimes that's a good deal. You know, the United States has a treaty with the Philippines that holds that, and other countries that hold that Social Security wages, Social Security deductions don't need to be withheld from Filipino laborers working in the United States. Now, unfortunately, that treaty does apply to us, but there are other similar treaties where it's to our advantage not to be included in those treaties. Well, a lot of discussion centers around the limitations born from the case law and certain phrases included in the century-old record. Klitzkie argues that the insular cases are why territories like Guam benefit from unique policies on taxation, wages, and immigration. American Samoa's upper house of their Congress is chosen by chiefs. Their land tenure is not like ours, Klitzkie said, stressing that elected members of the territory government have come out in opposition of the case. We had Amata Amua Radowagon on the show here for half an hour telling us why the folks in American Samoa don't want it. So I conclude that no one who is an American Samoa wants birthright citizenship except 3 people living in Utah, Klitzkie said. A nice quote there. All right, let's take a short break and we'll come back to this article in the Post.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
The 2022 GSPN Boys Volleyball All-Star Game presented by the Guam Army National Guard goes down Sunday, June 12th at the FD Phoenix Center. The best high school players from both the public and private schools will put their talents on display, coached by the champion coaches. Watch it live at the Phoenix Center or streaming on GuamSportsNetwork.com, powered by IT&E. The 2022 GSPN Boys Volleyball All-Star Game, June 12th.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
Okay, let's see, where did I leave off here? Yeah, I said I read this quote. So I conclude that no one who is an American Samoan wants birthright citizenship except 3 people living in Utah. The 3 people that are the plaintiffs in Neil Weir's case. Territories like American Samoa and CNMI are able to elect their lawmakers outside the American one-man, one-vote legal principle, and are able to restrict land ownership based on ancestry because the insular cases show that constitutional rights and property do not apply there. This tremendous benefit and others will be lost if cases are overturned. Even, Klitzkie said, even self-determination is at risk. Now, are you listening out there, all you separatists? Should Guam be subjected to the Constitution completely, the only way forward allowed by the Constitution would be to become a state. It doesn't allow for the possession to become independent directly. Well, that's not a very clear explanation, but what it means is this. If Downs is overruled and the Supreme Court says the revenue clauses of the United States Constitution apply ex proprio vigere, that is, of their own force, the rest of the Constitution will apply of its own force. And Article 4, Section 3, which I read almost every day here, I'll read it one more time, is gone. Article 4, Section 3. The Congress shall have the power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting the territory of the United States. So as we sit here right now, the Congress could dispose of the territory of Guam. The Congress could pass a law that says effective July 1, 2023, the United States withdraws all sovereignty from the island of Guam. And Guam then is independent. If Downs versus Bidwell is overruled, that's gone because Guam then becomes a incorporated territory and is no longer appurtenant to the United States, but is an integral part of the United States. And the Congress could no more set Guam free than it could set Texas free. It just doesn't work that way. So you separatists who are out there beating Neil Weir's drum, you might want to stop and remember that old saying, don't be careful what you wish for. Yeah. Guam specifically could lose its duty-free status, the revenue from income taxes for military personnel and federal employees. And he says, and a visa waiver tailored just for the island. I don't know about that. Residents would be subject to paying federal income tax for the first time, which would result in local leaders either dramatically slashing the GovGuam budget or raising local taxes dramatically to replace money that used to be deposited into our local treasury. But for those opposed to the insular cases, one of the reasons it should be struck down is to address the American legacy of denying constitutional citizens based on race. Now, this is not a quote. This is, again, the Post saying this, which just shows you, no. Retired federal and local judges from Puerto Rico and Guam, U.S. Virgin Islands, argue that the Supreme Court should overrule the cases because they are rooted in offensive racial stereotypes and based on their experiences are unworkable in application. Equally American press release stated. I got to do this again. I have to go through this so many times. Let's see if I got this. I hope I got this thing right handy here. And my papers got kind of messed up here. Yeah, here it is. Yeah. Okay, now here's an example of the racism that everybody knows about, right? This is something that Ann Parasatori, a professor at the University of Guam, said on John, let's see, what's the name of that show?
Daily Show?
Yeah, no, it's John Oliver. John Oliver show called Last Week Tonight. And it's a territory show. It's still out there if you want to find it. This is what she said. The United States flag is flying over these lands, so some people said, well, doesn't that mean American laws apply? In 1901, the Insular cases, basically the judgment of the Supreme Court, the new territories were inhabited by alien, quote, alien races, and they may not be able to understand Anglo-Saxon laws. Therefore, the Constitution doesn't have to apply. Ann Parasatori made this up. She made it up because that's not what you'll find in Downs versus Bidwell. And it's ironic because about the same, she was a university professor, and it's ironic because about the same time when Robert Underwood was the president of the university, he made this statement in one of the news media. He said, anyone who uses the title professor has a special responsibility to be truthful. The Guam public should feel free to demand more from academics in terms of quality of thought, transparency of processes, and most of all, honesty and integrity. At UOG, we have many academics who willingly share their ideas in public. The public should feel free to respond with ideas and hold them accountable, especially if they use the title professor. Academic freedom isn't free. There are many responsibilities associated with it. Now, after Paris's absolutely false quote ran on national TV, you want to know what Robert Underwood did, Jose? It's not what he did. It's what he didn't do. He didn't come out and set the record straight. He didn't require her to come out and set the record straight. He just let it go. And I've heard him say the same, well, the Insular cases are racist. So, once again, people in 1901, when the Insular cases were decided, there were racist people in the United States. There are racist people in the year 2021. There will probably be racist people in the United States in the year 2121. But that doesn't mean that you just can come out and make something up that the and what Ann Parasatori said is true. And then, of course, there's always the left's old device called presentism. You go back in history and you find something that you want to use as part of your CRT agenda. And, of course, when it comes to critical race theory, we have a pioneer here because all of Robert Underwood's speeches since 1972 talked about critical race theory. He's a practitioner. So you take something that happened over 100 years ago and you judge it by today's manners, morals, and ethics. And if it doesn't measure up, it's obviously wrong. And because it's wrong, people belonging to the same identity group as those who committed the wrong owe something to the oppressed and marginalized people. Reparations, something like that. So,
and if anyone thinks that you're just creating a fairy tale when you talk about reparations, pay attention to California.
Oh yeah, man. California admitted to the Union in 1849, never had slavery, has been probably one of the most liberal states in the Union, and they want to have reparations. Yeah.
It's in the bills.
Yeah, and it's so cynical. You know, it's so cynical. That's a large block of voters, and you appeal to a large block of voters not by their common interests, their ethics, their manners, but by the color of their skin. We're for you guys out there, you people of color. And it's the same game that Neil Weir and the Three Stooges are trying to play here. You guys owe us something, because what Ann Hattori said, the insular cases are really all about. So it's a fair article, and I think it's really, really important, because it's the first time that either of the two TV stations or either of the two newspapers have done anything with this whole insular cases issue except run Neil Weir's press releases. So that's pretty encouraging that there are news media that will go beyond what everybody knows. Everybody knows the insular cases are bad, and if the insular cases were overturned, we'd have SSI. The temperature would never go above 76. Relative humidity would drop down to 35%.
Cake for breakfast every day for everyone.
Everybody. I mean, it would just be a paradise. When actually, it would be hell on earth if the Constitution of the United States applied to Guam ex proprio vigere. So as I explained to one of the separatists, well, he's not a separatist. I'm talking about Jesse. I think Jesse started out as a separatist, and now Jesse, I suppose if I were to characterize Jesse, he is a structural purist. He's looking for a structure that includes Guam, that is unequivocal, cannot be questioned, and won't cause people to have conversations like the one we're having right now about the insular cases, whether the Constitution applies or not. Jesse said he would have Downs overruled, even if all of the horrible things that I'm predicting happen, or he would have Guam become independent, because according to Jesse, it's got to be one thing or the other. And actually, I agree with Jesse, because there aren't any other alternatives. The only other alternative is to stay the way we are, continue on as an unincorporated territory, work as hard as we can to improve our situation within the American political family. But if you're looking for something that is permanent, there are only two choices: incorporated territory or independence. So when people start talking to you about Chamorro's self-determination and the three choices, statehood, independence, free association, they're not talking about anything that's real. They're talking about independence. So if you tailgaters out there in our international radio listening audience want independence, that's it. That's exactly what the separatists are looking for. They don't want anything else. So it was interesting talking to Jesse, because my analysis was he started out as a separatist, and now he's come to something that at least he can explain. It's logical. I think it's lacking in practicality, but it's logical. Okay, one more thing along the same lines here. This is a story that ran in the Pacific Island Times on June 1. I never get this right. Yeah, there it is right there. And the title is, We didn't get screwed out of SSI by the Supreme. No, we didn't get screwed out of SSI by the Supreme Court. Well, if you haven't gotten around to picking up a copy at Payless or Circle K, this would be a good time, and you'll find out that the Supreme Court didn't screw us out of SSI. You'll find out who really did screw us out of SSI. All right. Let's see, we're very close here to the next break. Let me see what I've got coming up on the card. Yeah, there really wasn't much to talk about over the weekend news, except, what ran in the papers over the weekend. Next item on the card is Solace versus the United States of America. And this is an old story, just to show you that somebody is still thinking about it. This ran in Civil Beat, which is a Honolulu website that reports on news from Honolulu, oftentimes covering Guam and the Northern Marianas. Civil Beat did a really good job of covering the downfall of Anthony Apparat. Very good series. Done by a lady named Anita Hofschneider, who lives in Honolulu. And, of course, with a name like Hofschneider, the first word that ought to pop into your head is Tinian. And she's from Tinian. Did a nice job. Well, here's the latest from Civil Beat. Saipan man wages latest challenge to U.S. cockfighting ban. An animal welfare group says the lawsuit has no chance of success because of how similar lawsuits in Guam and Puerto Rico fared. A man's lawsuit in the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands is the latest challenge to a ban against cockfighting in U.S. territories. An animal welfare group says the lawsuit has no chance. Saipan resident Andrew Sablan Salas, who served in the House of Representatives and the Commonwealth Legislature and previously was Secretary of Commerce in the territory, said in a lawsuit filed last week in federal court that he's been involved in cockfighting since childhood. And in 2018, former President Donald Trump signed a law banning all animal fighting in U.S. territories. The law took effect in 2019. Prior to the law, cockfighting had been illegal in 50 states, but not U.S. territories. Despite the ban, Salas' lawsuit said he desires and intends to resume raising roosters for cockfighting purposes and entering them into cockfights in the territory. The ban intrudes on the internal affairs of the Northern Marianas by criminalizing a popular and traditional recreation activity and by imposing a moral and cultural standard that has not prevailed there through local democratic process, the lawsuit said. A spokesman for the U.S. Attorney's Office for Guam and the Northern Marianas didn't immediately comment on the lawsuit. Last year, a panel of the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals judges ruled against a Guam businessman whose 2019 lawsuit argued the ban was unconstitutional. The U.S. Supreme Court turned away a challenge to the federal law brought by individuals and organizations that argued Congress exceeded its power in applying the ban in Puerto Rico. The Congress is determined that cockfighting is barbaric and inhumane, and the federal courts have said the U.S. has the authority to take this action, said Wayne Pacell, president of Animal Wellness Action. This is settled law. Wayne Pacell also said there'd be a prosecution by the end of March. I missed that one. The Commonwealth of the Northern Marianas have a relationship with the United States government that is different from other territories, including a mutually binding constitutional agreement known as the Covenant, said Salas's attorney, Joseph Horry. The Covenant guarantees the CNMI people the right of self-government, Horry said in an email. Our position is that the anti-cockfight law is not consistent with the U.S. CNMI Covenant. A story that takes 5 minutes, as you were. So this is really interesting, and I'm kind of like Jesse here. I have mixed emotions about this. I don't like cockfighting, for sure. I've been to a couple cockfights just to see, but no, I really don't like it at all. And I kind of go along with Wayne Pacell's take on it. On the other hand, I don't like the national government making laws for localities. The national government wouldn't have the power to outlaw cockfighting in one of the 50 states. It can outlaw interstate commerce in birds, but the United States government doesn't have the power to execute what's called the police powers in the states. And to the extent that it should, and this should be part of our package here, the United States government should exercise no greater police powers in the territories than it legally could in the states. So I'm not in favor of the national government making this national law that cockfighting is illegal in the territories. So I see it in two different aspects. Now, I'm really interested in this lawsuit because if you study the covenant, which none of our local government officials have time to study the covenant, there are some really interesting provisions in there. And maybe I'll do a little work up on that for tomorrow because let's take a short break here and I'll come back to the covenant.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Yeah, so here we go. Just a few more minutes to the big halftime show. Yeah, none of our local politicians have time to take a look at the covenant between the United States and the Northern Commonwealth and Northern Mariana Islands and say, maybe we should try for something like this ourselves. Now, whether or not we can make a strong case that the United States ought to provide a similar covenant for us is a hard one because the difference between the CNMI and us is that the Mariana Islands, the Northern Mariana Islands were not part of the American political family at the time they negotiated their covenant. They were on the outside looking in. We're already on the inside. But it would seem like we could make an argument sort of like Rick Blaine in Casablanca when he said, "Play it, Sam. You played it for her. You can play it for me. Play as time goes by." Seems like we could make the same argument. Covenant, United States. Covenant for us. You gave it to them, you can give it to us. Give us a covenant. And we could have some of the things that would make us a little bit less under the thumb of the national government. At least that's the theory here in this lawsuit that Mr. Salas is bringing it. So if it turns out that his lawyer, Joseph Horry, has got a point, that could be a real plus for us, a real plus for cockfighters, of course, but a real plus for us because it might mean that we might be able to do something similar to what they've done with their covenant. So I'm going to be watching this one like a hawk. Okay, just a few more minutes till the big halftime show. Next item on the card is the ACLU versus freedom of speech. I think before I go to that, I'm going to see what folks are saying on the on the Facebook page here. We have Brendan Fausto, Let's Go Tall Tales, and Raymond McGravy is watching us from Mandan, North Dakota, Twin Cities with Pierre, North Dakota, the capital of North Dakota. And then we've got Henry Manglonia watching us from Barstow, California. And Bonnie Suba, who doesn't say this, but she's watching us from Oregon. Talk about an international radio listening audience, huh? Bonnie says, what's going on? Gas went up 15 cents today. Canada banned all guns. Food shortage on the rise. Did I miss something? Frank Paris said, good day, Judge. Lonnie Salas, good afternoon, Uncle Bob, Jose, and all tailgaters. And then Johnny Utah, half a day from Utah. Boy, they're just coming in from all over the states, huh? Mano Franklin, half a day. Sign of Bob, Jose, tailgaters, dan todo y tauta guahan van Macmata, de opman election talu, bota dan van bota, tom, bastaman hungi, Mandakunsia Natauta Todu Nai candidate Mandakunsia. Wake up. It's almost election time. Vote and vote with common sense. Or as they say, vote your conscience. Stop believing the liars or the people who lied. Biba Guam, Bida Todu, let's go, Brandon. Boy, he came loaded for bear, didn't he? And Lonnie Salas is saying good afternoon to Johnny Utah. It's kind of like a club here on Facebook, isn't it? And let's see. And Brandon Foster says, where there's love and me rump. I don't quite get that. Johnny Utah comes back and says, good afternoon, but it's midnight here. Hey. It's midnight in Salt Lake City. Jose Ted Pago, perfect title for today. Who gives $20 million to government while only gives its citizens a one-time, after all rise act and fuel vouchers? This tyrant millionaire governor. I'm going to pick that up tomorrow. Jose Martinez, the Punkit platform.
Yikes.
Whoa.
Well, that was last campaign.
Oh, okay. And we've got William John. We've got an answer here to Johnny Utah. Jose Ted Pago Jr., but it's virtue signal time. She's sick and couldn't finish the debate, so everyone has to show sympathy and give excuses for the Red Queen. Lonnie Salas wants everybody to vote. Maria Espinosa, who is exclusively Chamorro on Guam. I think we follow the one drop blood. Maria, if you have a great-great-great-grandfather that was half Chamorro, how good night tomorrow, Tauto. Okay, we've got...
How many... Let's see, first contact here on Guam was about 500 years ago?
1521.
And then 200 years when the government of Spain set up camp here?
1668.
Oh, 100 years. Oh, so it's been 300 years of Spanish rule
Yeah.
before United States took over.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, I'm not trying to discount myself as a Chamorro also, but that's a couple hundred years too late to be claiming like we have to have a status now. I just don't think it's feasible at this time.
Yeah, especially when you consider how many different kinds of folks the Spanish brought in here, people from the Philippines, people from Mexico. One of the accounts that I read said that a man from China named Chaco was here when San Vitores got here.
Mm-hmm. And it just, again, not discounting the history of Chamorros on this island, but it just doesn't seem to make sense to try to do some sort of purity. Yeah.
Well, whether it makes sense or not, it has a life of its own. Let's break for that big halftime show.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
A horrifying ordeal. I'm Laura Cantor, Fox News. A string of mass shootings occurring across the nation over the weekend. One of them happening in Philadelphia late Saturday night on South Street, a popular entertainment district filled with crowds. At least 3 people were killed and 11 others were wounded.
The officer drew his weapon and fired several times in the direction of the unknown male, we believe striking him. The unknown male dropped his handgun on the sidewalk and ran southbound on 600 American Street.
Danielle Outlaw, Philadelphia Police Commissioner. Police believe one of the deceased had been involved in a fight that led to the shooting. And early Sunday morning in downtown Chattanooga, Tennessee, officers discovering multiple victims that had been shot or struck by vehicles as they tried to escape the shooting.
Police say 3 people were killed and at least 17 others were hurt when someone opened fire outside of one of their downtown bars. More than a dozen people were shot and others were actually hit by a car that was fleeing the scene.
Fox's Alexis McAdams. In Saginaw, Michigan, early Sunday morning, 3 people were killed and 2 others injured. At a party at a Phoenix strip mall early Saturday morning, a 14-year-old girl was shot to death and 8 others were wounded. A shooting at a North Carolina hospital Sunday night, leaving 1 person injured. Authorities are searching for the suspect. A Russian airstrike targeting Kyiv, Ukraine over the weekend. Fox's Trey Yingst has more from Kyiv.
Explosions were heard around 6 a.m. local time, and we did see black smoke rising from the skyline. This is the first time in weeks that Kyiv came under Russian attack. In the strategic city of Severodonetsk, Ukrainian troops have taken back some territory in fierce street battles.
Russian President Putin warning the West on Sunday to not send multiple launch rocket systems to Ukraine. America's listening to Fox News.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
Pica's best radio station, but we're always looking for ways to be even better. Announcing the point on Alexa. In addition to our FM and HD radio feeds, our incredible app, informative website, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, you can now tell Alexa to stream The Point. And your smart speaker will start playing whatever we're saying. News and views 24/7 with your 4-word command. Alexa, stream The Point.
Los Angeles District Attorney George Gascon once again in hot water.
LA County DA George Gascon is facing even more backlash. This time it's over a teenager being sentenced to a youth camp as punishment for hitting a woman and her baby with a car. We're also learning that the young suspect was on probation for a felony at the time of the crash. Fortunately, the victim survived with minor injuries. The video shows this woman and her 8-month-old baby, who was in a stroller at the time, appearing to be mowed down by the then 16-year-old suspect in Venice. This happened in August. The teenage suspect was charged with felony assault by means of force and hit and run, but ultimately he was sentenced to a juvenile camp for 5 to 7 months.
Fox's Christina Coleman in Los Angeles. A published report in the UK says the departure of British Prime Minister Boris Johnson could be imminent.
The Conservative Party requires 54 letters of no confidence in order to trigger a vote to dump Boris Johnson as its leader and thus Prime Minister. And according to the Times in the UK, one minister thinks they are well above that threshold with 67 letters of no confidence. Reportedly, a vote is being planned for this week. Johnson angered the public by attending parties during the COVID lockdowns of 2020. Roger Stern, Fox News.
A New York City Department of Corrections captain has died after getting a popular plastic surgery procedure.
Tandra Bowser-Williams, a 49-year-old corrections captain at Rikers Island, suffered a massive stroke just days after traveling to Santo Domingo to receive a fat transfer surgery from plastic surgeon Dr. Hector Cabral back on May 13th, according to her husband, who spoke to the New York Daily News. Dr. Cabral was previously indicted in March of 2011 under former New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman on 10 counts of operating without a medical license and fraud and conspiracy charges. Ted Lindner, Fox News.
I'm Laura Cantor, and this is Fox News.
Half a day. Patsy Gogri from Security Title here with information about what a title company does. The title side of our business determines who owns a property and guarantees your ownership with a title insurance policy. The escrow side acts as an independent third party, managing the transfer of money and documents between the buyer, seller, lenders, and others. Security Title has a management of real estate closings down to a science. Give us a call. We are here to help.
Subway's Eat Fresh Refresh does it again, bringing back a classic fan favorite on the menu. The roast beef returns. And not just any roast beef, it's choice Angus roast beef, flavorful and satisfying on its own, or layered with oven-roasted turkey and Black Forest ham in the Subway Club. Whether you're a choice Angus roast beef purist or like the variety of the Subway Club, both come piled high on hearty multi-grain bread with fresh hand-sliced veggies. Get your fill of the new roast beef at Subway. Eat fresh.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Well, another great halftime show here on Tall Tales. They get better and better every week. And now it's that sacred time of the week when we go to the screen test for Hope Cristobal. If you haven't seen it before, Hope is the face and voice of the separatist movement here on Guam. She's very prominent. She's the chairperson of the Chamorro Language Commission. You'll hear her brag about being a senator at one time. So when you think about self-determination, separatism, etc., think in terms of Hope Cristobal, and you won't be too far off. Go ahead, Jose.
You're nothing but a white colonizer. That's who you are. Colonization. It's the same thing as slow murder. You're a murderer. That's who you are. We need to just do different. We need to do better. Get off my island.
Sir, you need to go. You can't be policing people here and telling people how to protest and what to protest for. You need to go. You need to go. I'm a demonstration. That's cool, but you cannot be policing people and telling them how to protest and what to advocate for. She has a right to go.
I'm an indigenous Chamorro. I have more rights here than you are. You came here because of the structures of colonialism, asshole. Tayo mamalaw, sige, Judy, tano. Titaw-taw-tano, how? Waho binitaw-taw-tano.
go.
Please.
You need to get out of here.
Please, sponsors.
Get out of here.
Please, this is not your place.
When I get a chance, go.
Please. Thank you. Thank you, sponsors. Please. No, you cannot.
I know. What happened, man?
Well, he confronted me.
What did he
He's
say?
telling me I shouldn't be here. I support Black Lives Matter. It's part of the colonialistic, systemic racism. And I came here to support these people. He's a white man that has come here. And he continues the legacy of colonialism. He continues to fight people, individuals, my goodness. I'm a former senator. I authored the Commission on Decolonization. Karohu. Ay, mamalo.
We're proud of you, Auntie.
Si Diyos mangasi.
Be safe.
So there you are, the face and voice of separatism here on the island. A really interesting post on Facebook by Frank Paris, and I'll read it and let you contrast that with the performance of Hope Cristobal, Miss Separatism herself. This is what Frank Paris says. In my opinion, presently we are such a degree, as you were such a diverse community of multiple ethnicities, tolerant with each other, diverse cultures. But we have one fault. Until we consider ourselves Americans first and truly embrace the promise of American citizenship, we will remain in a quagmire of political confusion. Well, if anybody wants to keep you in that quagmire, I think you just saw her. Hope, the very Hope Cristobal, chairperson of the Chamorro Language Commission and the face and voice of the Chamorro separatist movement. And let's see, I got somebody named Pete Jr. Pete Jr. Okay, well, we have a Pete, we have a repeat, now we have a Pete Jr., I guess, Pete.
Yes, Pete Jr., but like I told Joe, and I'm telling you, you can call me Junior Pete.
Junior Pete, okay.
Okay. Hey, I just got one. I keep listening every time you guys play that in the morning and on your show. Because I'm a long time, I listen to you a long time, but I don't call in because I'm learning. I'm learning from you. So I don't need to argue or this or that about it, make a comment, because I'm in 100% learning from you the truth. Here on island. Not about how to get to heaven, but here the politics here on island and all that. But Hope Cristobal, this is all I got to say. Dang, where were you when the Japs were here and took over the island? I wonder how you I want to hear her say that the same thing she says about the U.S. military, America, because I'm an American. I'm Chamorro. I got Chamorro bloodline in me, but I consider myself an American. Chamorro, that's why on the flag, you fly the American flag up on the top, and then the Chamorro flag below it, and your culture underneath it, whatever your culture may be. But I'm Chamorro, but my primary is American. I'm not ashamed of that. You know, you want to address racism. I addressed it back there, growing up back there first. Elementary, middle, junior high, and high school. I had trouble. I always, wherever I went, if we lived out in town, I was fighting black, I was fighting white, and I was fighting Mexican because they called me they called me yellow belly Jap, dirty chink, slant-eyed goop. But let me tell you what, I fight for my pride, myself, because they were attacking me. Who was attacking? Cristobal, you act like the American people, the American way of politics, the government, our local government, the U.S. military, You think that they have been treating you like they treated our mothers and fathers and their mothers and fathers when the Japs came? I wonder if you would be that strong in your language toward the Japs if you were back in that day. Boo. You wouldn't. You'd be hiding in. You'd be the first one to take off, you and your family. Everybody, if you don't have a gun, that's why I agree about the owning and possessing a gun. Are you still there?
I'm still here. I'm still listening. You're making a lot of sense.
You know, we didn't even have, when the Japs came, the local people didn't even have a fighting chance because none of them had weapons. Nobody had guns. At least if they had guns, they would have had a fighting chance. So what's your fighting chance if the Chinese or any of these other dictatorial, man, the things you said, the Chinese would have locked you up. I hope you're listening. And anybody else that is like you.
Well, I think you.
Think about that.
I think you pretty well nailed it there, Junior Pete. I appreciate your thoughts, and I'm glad you're a longtime tailgater. I'm glad you called us, and I hope you call us again. Okay.
Yeah, hey, and I wish you would play your halftime music because whenever you play your halftime music, my neighbors know.
Okay.
I cracked that up.
Okay. Okay, Junior Pete. Junior Pete. Didn't we play the halftime music today?
We played it, but he likes it, so we could probably play it.
Probably turns it way up, huh?
Turns it way up.
The cannon.
I think Colin Clark does the same thing right before he leaves work.
Okay. Yeah, I just need to jump in on a conversation that's going on here on Facebook about the word Chaco, C-H-A-C-O. And it's a word that you could find in a lot of different places, but the reason I mentioned it was that a Chinese named Chaco had moved to Guam from China. He was here at the time that Father San Vittorius came in to colonize the island. And Chaco is still, it's not Smith or Jones, but it's not an uncommon name on Guam. We had a director of revenue and taxation, it's probably been 40 years ago now, Manuel Chaco. So you'll find that name here on Guam. And I just mentioned that as kind of chiming in with Jose about how many different kinds of folks have found their way to Guam and kind of contributed to the ethnicity of the island.
Including Hope's historical background. She's got to be a little bit grateful for the structural colonialism that allowed her to be here as well.
Exactly, yeah. Well, if you study world history just a little bit, you see that the history of the world is movement. Nobody ever stayed in the same place for very long. Civilization started out in the Fertile Crescent, Akkad and Sumer, and it spread out from there, and people have been moving around the world ever since, and it's not going to stop. Even if you examine historical accounts of people that we call Chamorro now, and by the way, Robert Underwood has said that people didn't use that term to identify people living here until 1825. But folks that are living here migrated maybe from somewhere in Southeast Asia before they were here. And there were two migrations. The first historical one maybe 3,000 years ago, and the second one just about 1100 AD. So I don't know what the point is in getting all hung up on indigenous and et cetera, unless it's part of the same approach. Well, we are the underserved, we are the marginalized, we are the oppressed. Therefore, other folks owe us something that we really would like to have. Okay, let me see what I got here. I got a bunch of more comments on Facebook. Yeah, Peter Santos. The Chamorro last names that end with "ko" have Chinese origin. Chaco, Ompinko, Taidenko, Taekwenko, and I understand that the reason for that is that the "ko" on the end of a Chinese name is something like a term of respect. So elder, Taidenko, Taekwenko, etc. And that's why you see that frequently in names that we think are Chamorro, but perhaps started out in China. Okay, next item on the card is the Depp trial and the demise of the ACLU. How a celebrity trial exposed the collapse of a once celebrated group. So I'll tell you about how much time I spent keeping up on the Depp trial, Johnny Depp trial. I'd have to get down into the freshness. Somehow I did not find how two privileged, wealthy people who wouldn't even know how to get along with kids on a playground are fighting each other in court. It just did not ring my bell at all. When I see anybody beating up on the ACLU, I'm on that like white on rice. Because I used to have a lot of admiration for the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, which was primarily a champion of free speech. People like the Jehovah's Witnesses, who had ideas that were different from the mainstream, were defended by the ACLU as they expressed themselves. And of course, when you're talking about free speech, free speech is only good when you say something that people don't like. If everybody likes what you say, you don't need to be concerned about free speech. So here's the article. In the massive defamation award to actor Johnny Depp, his wife, Amber Heard, was left holding a bill for $15 million, even after reduction for her own award and a statutory reduction of the punitive damage portion. Heard is still looking at $8,350,000 in damages. Many view that amount, which is 1.35 million more than her divorce settlement. She lost money on that one. To be justified in light of the damage caused to Depp's reputation and career. However, the stain of this verdict should be shared with others, even if they avoided the sting of actual damages. That includes many in the media, including the Washington Post staff. And of course, this is my buddy Jonathan Turley that's writing this column, needless to say. It includes many in the media, including the Washington Post staff, who rushed to paint Heard as a victim and Depp as an abuser. Well, nowadays, if the woman's always right? Believe the woman, right? Yet the greatest condemnation should be reserved for the organization that only pushed that narrative, but actually helped draft the defamatory column, the American Civil Liberties Union.
Kind of like a conspiracy.
Uh-huh. The ACLU's role in this scandal emerged during trial. While Heard was accused of reneging on her public pledge to give the divorce settlement to charity, she did give a large donation to the ACLU. The organization then made her, quote, ambassador for women's rights, with a focus on gender-based violence. During the trial, evidence was introduced on how the ACLU staff helped Heard craft the defamatory column. That's where the libel came from, a column that she published. ACLU staffer Robin Schulman said in an email to Heard that she tried to capture Hurd's fire and rage in a draft. It was also reported that the ACLU's executive director, Anthony Romero, and legal director, David Cole, also made contributions. So they did her a favor. They helped her draft up this column that cost her over $8 million. ACLU staffer Jessica Weitz acknowledged in an email that she was aware that there was the chance of litigation, and told Hurd, "I want to make sure nothing was said in here that puts you in jeopardy with your non-disclosure agreement." So she had a non-disclosure agreement coming out of her divorce from Depp. It's not uncommon for celebrities to use ghost writers and editors, provided that you don't put Tello's name on it or Mary Torres's name on it. However, many of us questioned what Romero and ACLU were doing in the middle of this celebrity scandal. The answer is that the ACLU long ago abandoned its celebrated legacy as a fearless organization fighting for civil liberties and individual rights. Under Romero, the ACLU has become openly political and increasingly scandal-prone. The political agenda has corrupted the organization in the sense of cutting it adrift from the strong principles that once held it firmly to its original mission. I have no doubt that the new direction is motivated by deeply held political values. I also do not believe that it has taken this course for purely monetary gains or donations. It is corrupted in the sense of debasing its legacy. The ACLU once represented something more than just another political advocacy group. As with many other long-standing supporters of the ACLU, I have been critical of the politicization of the ACLU in the last decade. Many of the old guard at the ACLU left the organization as it took on a public agenda, including abandoning its long tradition of supporting the least popular in our society in favor of individual rights. Supporting the least popular in our society in favor of individual rights. Those critics included former ACLU former head Ira Glasser, who questioned whether the ACLU still maintains its defining commitment to free speech values. The trend was evident in its painfully nuanced approach to, quote, hate speech after criticism following the Charlottesville protests. Free speech protection was once the touchstone of the ACLU, which was fearless in its unpopular advocacy. It now seems like an area of open retreat for the organization. Some of us were particularly alarmed when the ACLU filed to oppose due process rights for students at our colleges and universities, particularly in the imposition of a higher and more consistent evidentiary standard. And that's, of course, for sexual discrimination, etc. ACLU filed suit to block the increased due process protections mandated by former Secretary Betsy DeVos in her proposed reforms. I have long been a critic of the rollback on due process on our campuses and noticed the absence of the ACLU in leading this fight. The ACLU sounded much like its historic opponents in decrying the scourge of too much due process as inhibiting greater enforcement. With this free fall at ACLU has come an endless line of controversies, like an ACLU staffer encouraging activists to, quote, break Senator Kristen Sinema. Another staffer opposed the admission into college of Nicholas Sandmann. You remember Nicholas Sandmann? The guy who was harassing the Indian with the drum? recovered a huge verdict from CNN.
MAGA hat boy.
Yeah. At points, it has become a parody of its own self, celebrating the legacy of Ruth Gator Ginsburg by editing her words as offensive. I covered that on the show, where they took some politically incorrect stuff out of one of Ginsburg's statements. The payment of a large donation by her to ACLU only magnified concerns over what seemed like an all-hands-on-deck effort to support her public claims. Heard publicly pledged $3.5 million to the ACLU and previously claimed that she made good on the pledge. The trial showed that $1.3 million was donated in her name, and it appears that $500,000 likely came from Elon Musk, who once dated Heard. Oh. I thought Heard was such a sharp guy. Musk was such a sharp guy. I detect, what's that sound I hear in the background? The falling of the stock price for yeah. The ACLU has reportedly filed an action against Depp for $86,000 in reimbursement for costs of looking for evidence in its files, part of the discovery process. The ACLU was once the North Star for those of us in civil liberties community. The loss of the organization as an independent and apolitical voice in our legal system has been devastating. The emergence of the ACLU at the heart of one of the most sordid celebrity trials in history is the final measure of the decline of this once celebrated civil liberties group. It was not easy to get here. It took the determined work of former President Susan Herman, current President Deborah Archer, and Romeo to erase decades, I think that's Romero, to erase decades of political and impactful advocacy on behalf of civil liberties for all. The trial put the new ACLU on full review as just another political advocacy group. What many saw was not the courageous group that once defended free speech rights of Nazis, Skokie, Illinois. Instead, what they saw was an organization seemed to be pandering to celebrities. In the Depp Heard trial, the ACLU finally hit rock bottom as an organization in free fall. It ultimately was the reputation of the ACLU, not Depp, that may have suffered the most in the trial. Ironically, for critics, Amber Heard became the fitting face and ambassador of the ACLU, conflicted, confused, and corrupted. Good column. Yeah. And what a disappointment. You know, I followed the ACLU way back in my law school days. You know, the ACLU was revered by law students back in the early 70s because they always took on the underdog, the hard fight, the unpopular speech. And they almost always won. But they're woke. The woke, they have now given up their residence in the United States and moved to Wokistan. That's pretty sad. All right, let's head for Wrigley Field.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Are you looking for a new place to hang out with your friends? Let's go along the sidelines at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Located at 154 Iriarty Road, Unit 4 and 5 in Tamuning behind Royal Bigs. Sidelines, a hidden gem with nothing but great things to offer. Great atmosphere, great food, top shelf drinks, and a great team. What are we waiting for? Let the fun begin at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Open daily from 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. See you there.
So here we are, seventh inning stretch at Wrigley Field. That means I got just 2 innings to go. And some inspiration from Pam Duvall. Pam Duvall, who Ray calls the mother of his show. So picking up on what Pam put on Facebook here, the reason that the ACLU went so hard for Amber is because they wanted herd immunity. Very good, Amber. Very good, Pam Duvall. Okay, next item on the card is rulemaking versus the legislature. So finally, the legislature did something right. And Jose, you know, when it came to the cannabis industry rules, you know, it wasn't what the legislature did. It's what the legislature didn't do, which was the right thing to do. If only that were the right thing to do more often, we'd be in better shape. The 90-day window for the legislature to address proposed rules and regs for a cannabis industry passed with no action from senators. That means the rules will be approved by default, despite disagreements expressed by constituents and some senators on the way the rules would govern the cannabis industry. How dare they? Recreational cannabis has been legal on Guam since 2019, but selling or trading marijuana has remained illegal with no rules in place for the licensure of growers, manufacturers, and retailers of the plant. There has been a considerable amount of discussion about using the appropriate fertilizer, Adrian Cruz of the Department of Agriculture being the standard bearer for manure.
Lost it.
Adrian Cruz, Deputy Director of Agriculture, being the standard bearer for manure. There we go. Attorney Vanessa Williams, who chairs the Cannabis Control Board, says she's waiting for final confirmation from the compiler laws and the legislative secretary on the adoption of the rules. The board aims to work with the Department of Rev Tax and can begin accepting applications by the next meeting set for Monday. She said, hopefully we can actually clear that first date when we can start to see a commercial cannabis industry launch. They've already prepared application forms in anticipation of the rules passing, Williams said. Following a review by the Office of the Attorney General, the legislature received the proposed rules March 1. The time frame for lawmakers to adopt, reject, or modify them expired May 29. No, the time frame for the legislature to adopt or reject expired May 29. They don't have the ability to modify rules and regs. I know that's what the statute says, but the statute is wrong. You can't enact a statute by the rulemaking process, and that's what, in effect, what would happen. In consideration of the deadline, Speaker Therese Tetlahi said she had placed the rules as a potential item for lawmakers to address during their May session. But lawmakers ultimately didn't take any action before debate concluded Tuesday afternoon. According to Terlahi, a committee report detailing public input and information on the rules, which is required for senators to address the rules during the session, hadn't been prepared this Wednesday. So here we go again. What does the legislature do? Well, they build it. No. They haul people from one place. No. They grow food. No. They pass laws. And what's part of the passing laws process? Public hearing, testimony, committee reports. And they're not doing every time we pick up the paper. Oh, we couldn't pass that law because the committee report wasn't done. This is a good time to fire the whole bunch of them and get people that can do committee reports. It's not that hard, folks.
They're good at passing during the voting session.
Exactly. Yeah, that would be folks like, I've got that on the top of my calendar here, the passers. We've got Sheldon and Clint. And let's see, we got one more, too. I thought we had three, Shelton and Clint. Yeah, I guess I'm thinking last time when Ms. Titano passed and wrote a letter to the editor about it. Yeah, so right now we've got Shelton and Clint as passers. So they cannot amend the bill. So if the rules comes to them, they hold hearings, and the senators don't like what they're seeing in the rules, what they do is introduce a bill to disapprove the rules. And they can put their standard legislative findings in there telling why they don't like it, pass the bill, disapproving the rules, the governor signs it, and then the agency that promulgates the rules can try again. But the agency is the only one that can promulgate the rules. The legislature is the only one that can do statutes. So this time, for once, the legislature did the right thing by not doing anything. I'm surprised they didn't get in there with their quill pens and try to screw the whole thing up. Okay, here we go. A bill will need to be introduced by the oversight chair or other senators, or the rules will need to be updated by the Cannabis Control Board to address any concerns brought up during the hearing by stakeholders. Of course. Now, the reason that we do this rulemaking thing is this, that the theory is that a board or commission that has jurisdiction over a particular part of the law will have greater expertise and formality, as you were, familiarity with that area of the law, and will be able to come up with a better product than a bunch of dumb legislators, a bunch of ill-informed legislators who don't know much about the subject or anything else for that matter. So it makes sense to enact a statute, put standards in the statute, say enact rules and regulations that comply with the following standards, 1, 2, 3, 4, and send it to the agency. The agency then goes through its own process, public hearings, etc., and when they've got something that they think will pass Organic Act muster, they send it to the legislature. The legislature could, on the day that it is received, introduce a bill, have the hearing, pass the bill, and they could the rules could be effective in less than a month. Or they could introduce a bill, as I mentioned earlier, to reject the rules, or they can do nothing, which is actually kind of the preferred way for it to go. Okay, so in order to start over again, well, you could enact a statute that says, let's say that the rules do not allow for horizontal, as you were, vertical integration of the marijuana industry. You can't be a farmer, a processor, and a seller all at once. So if the legislature doesn't like that, they introduce a bill, and that they say, with respect to cannabis, and you'd use, of course, the proper language, vertical integration is to be favored in any rules made by the Cannabis Control Commission and pass it. Or you could just go right in and say, no rule shall prohibit the vertical integration of cannabis. That's how it's done. It's an iterative process between the legislature and the agency. You don't do the rules and send them over to the legislature and let the legislature carve them up. So I'm encouraged that the legislature didn't do anything. Going on to Senator Clint Rigel. Senator Clint Rigel, whose Committee on Economic Development and Agriculture has oversight of the proposed cannabis rules, appeared to be absent from the May session. Rigel posted on social media last week about the death of his father, Riley Albert Rigel, who died May 23. R.I.P. Riley Rigel, teacher at Community College, important member of the community. Our condolences, Clint. So Rigel, who according to his office was occupied with funeral preparations and couldn't be reached for comment. Williams said the board anticipates that the rules will have to be revised as the cannabis industry on Guam evolves. And that's another reason you do rules instead of a statute, so that the agency that's actually running the program sees what needs to be fine-tuned and acts rules to do that. One of the things that we discussed at the last board meeting, and we have on the agenda for Monday, is that with the iteration of the rules that we now have, what are we looking to revise, she said. She also said, it's impossible to separate our choice of whether and when to have children from every other choice in our lives. I guess she's more definitive when it comes to marijuana rules than she is when it comes to having children. I hope so. Okay, next item on the card. Carl versus GVB. And this is pretty old news by now, but I hadn't got to it before. Despite the allegations of, this is a story from the Post, despite allegations of conflict of interest and open government law violations, Guam Visitors Bureau President Carl Gutierrez told the GVB membership Tuesday that there's, quote, not a big fight going on between management and the board. Gutierrez told the board that he had petitioned Tall Tales to take the item Gutierrez versus GVB board off the card since it's really not a fight. We're just trying to be sure we obey the bylaws and the law so that as we move forward, there'll be no more questions and no more infighting. And we make sure that our focus is tourism for Guam, Gutierrez said. The president even joked with the audience, telling the membership that nothing was different, except that he and GVB board chairman tasted each other's food before they ate at the meeting. He then reassured the membership that the food was not poisoned and that programs continue to move forward. On May 12, the GVB board voted to postpone all meetings until the Bureau had harmonized enabling legislation and bylaws passed in 2013 that was deemed illegal by legal counsel, and for the board to hire its own legal counsel using GVB funds, which apparently didn't happen. In March, Gutierrez lobbed allegations that board members have conflicts of interest and are violating the Open Government Act. He levied more accusations at the May board meeting, saying the board continues to manage the Bureau beyond the scope of the law. Vice President Jerry Paris, delivered an update on GVB board and management relations during the meeting. Board members were part of the meeting, including Chair Milton Morinaga, who sat next to Gutierrez on stage as they shared one another's lunches. Paris said a lot of what happened with the board may have been misconstrued or misperceived or not understood. And I'm here to clarify exactly where we are with this issues, Paris added. Paris said a business risk compliance and control committee had been organized with the purpose of clarifying incongruities between GVB's enabling statute and its bylaws. The committee includes Gutierrez, Paris, GVB legal counsel, GVB elected board member Jeffrey Jones, and Ron Uggan, assistant professor of public administration at the University of Guam School of Public Administration. The committee will perform an administrative review and identify issues and root causes with the goal of harmonizing bylaws and the enabling statute. We expect to complete this sometime within 60 to 90 days for the board to review and ultimate approval. There might be some issues that might require legislative remedy, but we don't know that until we finish the review, Paris said. Meanwhile, as Carl mentioned, it's business as usual. Well, of course, there's another question that arose out of that. What about the Ethics Commission? How long will it take the Ethics Commission to whitewash this and say, well, they kissed and made up, so there's no longer any ethical challenge here? All right, let's head for Churchill Downs.
The 2022 GSPN Boys Volleyball All-Star Game presented by the Guam Army National Guard goes down Sunday, June 12th at the FD Phoenix Center. The best high school players from both the public and private schools will put their talent on display, coached by the champion coaches. Watch it live at the Phoenix Center or streaming on GuamSportsNetwork.com, powered by IT&E. The 2022 GSPN Boys Volleyball All-Star Game, June 12th.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Okay, here we are, the home stretch on Tall Tales. And what a way to wind up a show. I got Frenchie on the phone. So, if we were still back at the seventh inning stretch in Wrigley Field, I would say, and now stepping into the batter's box is the cleanup hitter, Frenchie. You're the cleanup hitter today, Frenchie. Go for it.
Flattery. Yeah, the GVB, if I recall, the biggest tiff was between the governor and the president of United Airlines here on Guam, right? And I think Carl has a good point, because if you see the way we've been reopening, of course we went for Korea, but then United started reopening all their Japanese route before anybody else. And what's very interesting is that the only real American competition to United is Delta. And when Delta left, the Korean Air has been doing the code sharing, because they are in the same alliance with Delta. And we used to have very good connections to go to the U.S. and Europe with Delta, KLM, Air France, all those things in Incheon. But because because Korean Air has not been, I guess, enticed enough, right now they have not gone back to heavy schedule. So United is really benefiting from that situation. And I do not know if Carl Gutierrez was kind of pushing on that, but I have a suspicion that it's probably part of the issues that they've been having. And that route to Korea with Delta is a very good one, and right now it's still not open, and it benefits United greatly, even though their service and their prices are not as good as Delta. So it's very interesting that Carl has been pushing on that. He has a tendency to get things done, and it looked like there was a conflict of interest there between the president of United Airlines here on the island, who is, I think, he's the director of the GVB, or
he's one of the directors. Yes.
Yeah. So it's obviously a conflict of interest. Pushing his company's interests on top of others is not what I would call very ethical, but. We'll see what comes out of it. I think we'll probably learn down the road what really happened, even though, but it sure got Carl Gutierrez riled up.
True enough. Go ahead.
Yeah. So that was my remarks on this, because every time I've been taking those flights through Incheon, I see a lot of military personnel taking those flights to go back to the U.S. rather than taking the United through Narita, and so I was wondering if really that was not part of the equation there.
There was a time when the FAA slapped. I don't remember if it was Northwest or Delta on what they called a cabotage violation, because they were ticketing people from Guam to the U.S. mainland via Seoul. Yeah. So it's okay to sell a ticket from here to Seoul and then another ticket from Seoul to San Francisco, but not to a through ticket to San Francisco. But yeah. I've gone that way myself, and I'll tell you, if you ride on Korean, you probably never want to ride on United again. And
that's for sure.
And if you go through the airport in Incheon, you'd never want to step foot in Honolulu International again either.
That's true. Yeah, it's a very different level of service, and it makes a huge difference. And just I guess with age also we appreciate a little bit more comfort and reconnaissance, not just being held like cattle.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you go through Honolulu, if you're going to go straight through, unless you have a walking program like mine, you might not make it.
Yeah. And then the connections are usually very tight, like 45 minutes instead of 2 hours. If your flight for whatever reason has been delayed on departure and they cannot make up the time in the air, you're what the military call SOL, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Bob. Appreciate that.
Always good to talk to you, Frenchie. Glad you chimed in today.
All right. Have a nice evening.
So long. So we're up about, what, a minute and a half? 1 minute. Okay, I don't have time to start the next item on the card. I got my sign here handy. Let's take a look at my sign here. Yeah, there it is. And you all know the genesis of the sign. Once again, the left-wing media trying to cover for a public official, the president in this case. He was so effective that Let's Go Brandon has now become a cottage industry. I've got a couple Let's Go Brandon cups. I've seen people wearing Let's Go Brandon hats and T-shirts. And, of course, it's not a real double entendre. I suppose there is a name for a phrase that has a literal meaning but is a symbol of a totally different meaning. And the reason that I show it is not for its literal meaning, but for the symbolic meaning, which causes me to holler at the end of every show, "Let's go, Brandon!"
Is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
The shootings continue. I'm Laura Cantor, Fox News. More mass shootings happening across the nation over the weekend. In Philadelphia, a shooting spree taking place on South Street, a crowded entertainment district.
Police believe a fight between three guys in Philly led to this mass shooting. Overall, at least 14 people were shot, and 3 of those people were killed. The people range in age from 17 to 69 years old. Investigators found 5 guns at this crime scene. A Philly cop was involved. He said he saw multiple people in the crowd opening fire, so he pulled out his gun and tried to take down one of the shooters.
Fox's Alexis McAdams. Chattanooga police saying 2 people have been shot dead and 17 others injured in the downtown area near a bar early Sunday. A 3rd person was killed after being hit by a car while fleeing the shooting.
There's definitely more than one shooter, so I don't want to confirm the exact amount, but there looks like there will be multiple shooters.
Celeste Murphy, Chattanooga police chief. Additional shootings taking place in Saginaw, Michigan and Phoenix, Arizona. 1 person injured in a shooting at a North Carolina hospital Sunday night. The suspect remains at large. The Supreme Court could be deciding some pivotal cases by the end of the week. Fox's Alexandria Hoff has more from Washington.
The court is due to issue opinions starting tomorrow and will do so until the term closes at the end of the month. There are over 30 total, one being the standout abortion rights case Dobbs v. Jackson's Women's Health. A draft opinion by Justice Alito that was leaked last month created a firestorm for the court as protesters saw this as an indication that nationwide access to abortion under Roe v. Wade was set to be undone. The investigation into the source of the leak is heating up.
As a show of strength, the U.S. and South Korea test firing 8 ballistic missiles into the sea Monday, after North Korea performing the same action the day before. America's listening to Fox News.
Get all of your favorite Fox News podcasts ad-free on Apple Podcasts with Fox News Podcasts Plus. From Trey Gowdy, the Fox News Rundown, Will Kane, Brian Kilmeade, and so much more. Go to foxnewspodcasts.com for all the details. The Fox News Rundown, a contrast of perspectives you won't hear anywhere else. Your daily dose of news twice a day. Featuring insight from top newsmakers, reporters, and Fox News contributors. Listen and subscribe now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com. New from the Fox News Podcasts Network, Dana Perino, co-host of The 5 and America's Newsroom on Fox News Channel, returns to the world of audio with a new limited-time podcast, Everything Will Be Okay with Dana Perino. Building off the success of her best-selling book of the same name, Dana provides an unequaled brand of advice built on real-life experience and interviews experts and individuals that make a difference in the lives of others. Subscribe and listen now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Louisiana, the latest state to have a Starbucks become unionized.
Employees at a New Orleans Starbucks have voted to form a union, becoming the first Louisiana location to do so. Baristas in one of the chain's stores in Buffalo, New York, became the first to unionize in the country late last year. As recently as last week, a location in Birmingham, Alabama, voted to join Workers United, the outfit that represents the stores that chose to unionize. Billy Nix, a recently fired worker in New Orleans, is leading the union push. Starbucks said in a statement that it will listen to the proposal, but gave no early indication on whether it would challenge the effort. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
Sunday marking the final day of Queen Elizabeth's Platinum Jubilee celebration. Fox's Greg Palcott has more from London.
The Queen hadn't been seen since Thursday, but she looked great today, smiling, waving, seeming to take it all in. The public had been also taking in that pageant parade about the life and times of the Queen, including a carriage that brought her to the coronation 7 decades ago. Since then, according to all here, the Queen has steered this country through a lot of bumpy times. Also watching the parade, William and Kate's children, including the very expressive 4-year-old son, Louis, who made such a hit earlier. Not seen again today, Prince Harry and Meghan. It turns out their attendance at Friday's St. Paul's service was really their only official outing of the weekend.
After a 2-year hiatus, the Tunnel to Towers returning to New York City's One World Trade Center Sunday. Iowa Republican Senator Joni Ernst discussing how special the climb is to her.
Did the climb this morning with a number of other veterans, and it was phenomenal to spend the time with them, to remember the sacrifices of 9/11.
I'm Laura Cantor, and this is Fox News.
Hey there, folks. It's me, KFC's Extra Crispy Colonel. My KFC Extra Crispy Chicken is freshly double-breaded and fried to a luxurious, mouth-watering bronze. You see, Extra Crispy KFC Chicken isn't just a product, it's a lifestyle.
And for a limited time, KFC's delicious egg tarts are back. Pick up your KFC Extra Crispy Chicken Meal and an order of egg tarts at your favorite KFC today. KFC, it's finger-licking good.
The Dean's List with Janice Dean.
High school kids who helped a fellow 6th grader makes today's Dean's List. Brody Ritter goes to the Academy of Charter Schools in Westminster, Colorado. When he recently got his yearbook, he was excited to get signatures from his classmates. But when he asked others to sign it, many said no. Brody wrote a note to himself and signed it in his yearbook that said, "Hope you make some friends." His mom, Cassandra, saw it, and it broke her heart. She decided to post the note to a close Facebook group of parents. The response was overwhelming. Kids from higher grades wanted to help, so a trio rounded up others to get them to sign Brody's yearbook. More than 100 signatures, including paragraphs with words of encouragement, advice, and even phone numbers were included. The teenagers say they hope the small gesture inspires others to be kind. Brody says it made him feel better as a person. Thanks to everyone for making Brody feel special. You all made today's Dean's List. Janice Dean, Fox News.
Guam's hottest talkers in the best of the stateside networks. Plus, Fox News Live 24/7. Only on KUSG Hagåtña. This is The Point.
Hi there and good evening. Welcome to the Jimbo Hannon Show from Westwood One Radio. The phone number